I finally bought my dream house and invited my family to see it. No one showed up. At 8:47 on a Saturday night, I stood alone in the dining room of the house I'd spent 10 years working toward, staring at a table set for 5, a roast chicken going cold under the kitchen light, and silver balloons spelling home already starting to sag. My father's text came through like it was nothing. We need to talk about the house. Not congratulations. Not sorry we missed dinner. Not proud of you. Just that. And standing there in the silence, with the food cooling and the candles burning lower, I realized something that took me 30 years to understand. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even surprised. I was done. There's a difference. Sadness still waits for things to get better. Done is quieter than that. Done is a door closing so softly you almost miss it, until you realize it locked behind you. I set the table for 5 people like it mattered. White ceramic plates I'd bought that week, nothing expensive, just clean, unchipped, mine. I lined them up evenly, adjusted them twice. Then once more when I noticed one was half an inch off. Forks on the left, knives on the right, glasses above each plate. I even folded the napkins the way I'd seen in a video. Simple, but intentional. The food had come out better than I expected. Roast chicken with thyme and lemon, my dad's favorite. Garlic mashed potatoes. Green beans with almonds. Fresh rolls still warm enough to steam when I pulled them apart. The kind of meal that takes hours, but looks effortless if you do it right. I kept moving, fixing small things no one else would notice, straightening the chairs, repositioning the flowers, yellow tulips in a glass pitcher because I didn't own a vase yet, checking the playlist, soft jazz. My mom used to play it on Sunday mornings when I was a kid, back when the kitchen felt like a place you wanted to be. By 6:50, everything was ready. By 7:00, the house was quiet. At first, it didn't feel wrong. People run late. Traffic. Last-minute stops. I sat down anyway, just to see how it looked from the chair I imagined my dad would take. Then I stood up again, sat down at the other end, adjusted a fork, checked my phone. Nothing. 7:05. Still nothing. 7:15. I sent a text. Hey, dinner's ready whenever you get here. No reply. The chicken started losing its shine. Steam stopped rising from the potatoes. One of the balloons made a soft sound as it shifted against the wall, the silver letters pulling downward just slightly, like gravity had decided to get involved. 7:30. My knee started bouncing under the table. I didn't even realize it at first. Just this steady rhythm I couldn't shut off. I checked the front window, even though I would have heard a car pull up. The street outside stayed empty. 7:45. I called my mom. Voicemail. Called my dad. Voicemail. Called my brother. He picked up, but I could hear music behind him. Laughter. Glasses clinking. Not even subtle. I hung up a few minutes later and went back to the table. But I didn't sit this time. I just stood there, looking at it like it belonged to someone else, like I'd walked into the wrong house and interrupted a setup that wasn't meant for me. The candles had burned down enough to leave small wax pools around the base. The tulips had already started to open a little too wide, like they'd been waiting longer than they were supposed to. Everything was exactly how I planned it, and completely pointless. I wasn't sad. That's the part that still sticks with me. I was just finished. Like something I'd been holding on to for years had finally slipped out of my hands, and instead of grabbing for it, I just watched it fall and didn't move. I wasn't sad. I was done. My name is Ethan Cole. I turned 33 months before I bought that house, and for almost 10 years, my life had been built around one goal, so specific it sounded stupid when I said it out loud: own a house that was mine. Not rented, not shared, not temporary. Mine. I didn't want flashy. I didn't care about square footage or impressing anyone. I wanted something simple. A place with a front porch, a yard, and enough space to feel like I wasn't borrowing my own life anymore. I heard every version of the criticism. That's not a financial plan. Man, that's a fantasy. You're wasting your 20s locking yourself down. Travel a little, live a little. That last one was Kevin's favorite, my older brother, 33, like me, but somehow always treated like he was still figuring things out. Kevin moved through apartments the way people scroll through shows quickly, without attachment, always convinced the next one would be better. He once said at Thanksgiving, in front of everyone, that I treated money like a religion and fun like a sin. Everyone laughed. I smiled. Then I went home and transferred another $200 into my savings. That's what they saw, or thought they saw. A guy being tight with money, obsessive, maybe a little boring. What they didn't see was the structure behind it. At 23, I moved to Raleigh with no connections and a help desk job paying $16 an hour. I knew exactly no one. My apartment was a studio so small I could stand in the middle and almost touch both walls. I had a mattress, a folding table, and a chair that didn't match anything because nothing matched anything. I stayed there for 4 years. I worked every shift no one else wanted. Nights, weekends, holidays. If there was overtime, I took it. If there was a certification opportunity, I signed up. CompTIA Security Plus, then AWS Solutions Architect. I switched companies twice, each time negotiating a little higher, climbing from 16 to 22, then to 31 an hour. It wasn't luck, it was repetition. Meal prep on Sundays, same 5 meals rotating, rice, chicken, vegetables, cheap, predictable, efficient, library books instead of subscriptions. The same car a used 2014 Civic I drove until the mileage got close to 200,000. It looked like deprivation from the outside. It wasn't. It was design. Every dollar had a place to go before I even earned it. Every decision fed into something larger that no one else seemed to take seriously. I wasn't trying to look successful. I was trying to build something that would last longer than a lease agreement. By 25, I had saved $38,000. No one in my family knew that number. They didn't ask. To them, I was the guy who didn't go out much, the one who said no to trips, the one who stayed quiet when Kevin told another story about a weekend he couldn't afford, but took anyway. Kevin, who always had something going on. Kevin, who always had someone backing him when things fell apart. Kevin, who never seemed to carry consequences the way I carried spreadsheets, and I didn't hate him for it, not really, but I noticed. I noticed who got celebrated for trying and who got ignored for finishing, and I kept going anyway. Because the goal wasn't them, it was the house. On March 22nd, at 2:15 p.m., I sat in a quiet conference room at a title company in Asheville, North Carolina, and signed my name 43 times. Each signature felt like a checkpoint, not dramatic, just final when it was done. I slid a cashier's check across the table, $47,600. My down payment, no cosigner, no family money, not a single dollar that hadn't come from my own account. Built one transfer at a time over nearly a decade. The attorney, Diane Prescott, looked over everything, stamped the last page, then reached into a small tray beside her. She slid a single brass key across the table. "Congratulations, Mr. Cole," she said. "It's yours." I picked it up and held it in my palm. It didn't look like much, just metal, slightly worn, but it felt heavier than it should have, like 10 years had weight to them after all. And somehow it had all condensed into that one object. For a second, I just sat there, no noise, no applause, no one to look at, just me, a table, and the realization that I'd actually done it. The house was $289,000. A 3-bedroom craftsman bungalow on a quiet street called Laurel Ridge Drive. Robin's egg blue siding, white picket fence, hardwood floors that creaked just enough to remind you they were real. A wraparound porch with a swing that faced the street. And in the front yard, exactly where I'd always imagined it, an oak tree. 70 years old, according to the listing. Wide branches, thick trunk, the kind of tree that didn't just grow there, it belonged there. I stood under it the first time I saw the house and had this strange feeling I couldn't explain. Like I'd been there before. Later, when I unpacked a box from storage, I found a drawing I'd made when I was 9. Colored pencil. A house, badly proportioned. A fence that leaned too far left, and a tree out front that took up half the page. It wasn't identical, but it was close enough to make me stop and sit down. Back at the closing, Diane handed me a folder with all the documents. I nodded, said thank you, shook her hand. Then I walked out to the parking lot, got into my car, and just sat there for a minute with the key in my hand. No one called. No one knew I was there. I started the engine, drove to the house, and parked in front of it. No moving truck, no noise, just the sound of the engine ticking as it cooled. I got out, walked up to the front door, and stood there for a second longer than necessary. Then I unlocked it. The door opened with a soft click, and the house was quiet, completely empty. No furniture, no echoing voices, just open space and light coming in through the windows. I stepped inside, hardwood under my feet, sunlight across the floor, the faint smell of fresh paint mixed with something older wood. Maybe. I walked through every room slowly. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms, bathroom, back again, not rushing, not trying to capture it, just taking it in piece by piece, like I needed to confirm it was real from every angle. When I stepped out onto the porch, I sat on the swing and looked out at the street. That's when it hit me. Not all at once, not overwhelming, just a release, like something I'd been holding in place for years had finally let go. I leaned back, let the swing move slightly, and closed my eyes for a second. And the first thought I had wasn't about money, or work, or even the house itself. It was simple. I need to show them. The first thing I did after I got the keys wasn't unpack. It was open my phone, not to post anything, not to tell coworkers, not to take pictures for strangers. I scrolled to the one group chat I'd had for years, but barely used me. My mom, my dad, and Kevin. I stared at the message box longer than I needed to. I rewrote it twice. Then I typed, "Hey, I officially closed on the house today. I'm hosting dinner this Saturday at 7 to celebrate. I'd really like you all to come. Address below." It would mean a lot. I added a photo of me standing on the porch, holding the key. I was smiling in it wide, probably too wide, the kind of smile that feels earned, but also a little forced. Like you're trying to make sure the moment lands. I hit send. My mom replied about 10 minutes later. "Oh wow, okay, Kevin sent a thumbs up." My dad didn't respond at all. I told myself that was fine. Because it wasn't about the messages. It was about showing up. Saturday came faster than I expected. I woke up early and didn't stop moving all day. Not because I had to, but because I wanted everything right. Not perfect. Just right. I went to the store twice because I forgot things the first time. Then I forgot something again. It didn't matter. I had time. I started cooking around noon. Roast chicken with thyme and lemon. I don't even like cooking that much. But I'd learned it years ago because it was my dad's favorite. Garlic mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, fresh rolls, and the lemon tart. That one took the longest. 3 hours? Start to finish. From scratch. Dough, filling, everything. My grandmother used to make it. My mom showed me how when I was 13. One of the few times we'd actually done something together without it turning into a lecture or a comparison. I didn't even like lemon desserts, but I made it anyway because somewhere in the back of my head, there was still this idea that maybe she'd take a bite, pause, and say something like, "You got it right." I set the table after that. Same plates I'd bought earlier that week. I wiped each one before placing it down, even though they were already clean. Set everything evenly, adjusted it again. I bought flowers, yellow tulips, didn't have a vase, so I used a glass pitcher. It worked. I hung silver balloons that spelled home across the wall. It felt a little stupid while I was doing it, but I didn't take them down. I lit candles just before 7, put on music soft jazz, low enough to fill the space without taking over. At 6:30, the house smelled like food and something warmer than that, something close to what I remembered from when I was a kid, back when dinners meant something. I stood in the kitchen for a second and looked around. Everything was ready. Everything. At 7:00, I sat down. At 7:05, I checked my phone. Nothing. That didn't mean anything yet. People ran late. My family had always run late. I told myself that like it was a rule, like it meant something predictable. I leaned back in the chair, listened to the music, let a few minutes pass. 7:15. I picked up my phone again and typed, "Hey, dinner's ready whenever you get here." Sent. Set the phone face down. Waited. 7:30. The food had started to cool in a way you can't fix. The chicken skin lost that shine it had when it first came out of the oven. The mashed potatoes stiffened slightly at the edges. I got up, walked into the kitchen, adjusted the heat under nothing, then turned it back off. Pointless movement. Back to the table. 7:45. My knee started bouncing again, faster this time. I stopped it with my hand, pressed down hard until it stayed still. I picked up my phone and called my mom. It rang 4 times, voicemail. I didn't leave one. I called my dad. Same result. I stared at his name on the screen for a second longer than necessary before backing out. Then I called Kevin. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey," he said, like it was a normal night, like there wasn't a dinner he was supposed to be at. There was noise behind him, music, voices, glasses hitting each other. A bar. "Where are you?" I asked. A pause. Not long, just long enough. Out. "Why?" I didn't answer that. "Dinner's at my place. Tonight." Another pause. Heavier this time. "Oh, yeah, I think Mom said something came up. Like what, I don't know. Man, I thought it got pushed or something." It didn't. Silence again. Then a shift in his tone. Impatience creeping in. "Look, I'm already out with some people. Can we just do it another time?" He didn't wait for me to respond. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly and set it on the table. Not hard, not angry, just deliberate. I sat there for another 30 minutes. I don't know why. Maybe I was waiting for a message, a call, a car pulling up outside, something that would reset the night back to what it was supposed to be. Maybe I just needed to see how long it would take for the last bit of expectation to burn out completely. 8:15. My phone buzzed. I didn't pick it up right away. I already knew what it was. When I did, it was my mom. "Sorry, something came up. Busy tonight." 5 words. No explanation, no call, no acknowledgement of what the night was supposed to be. 5 words for 10 years. I read it once, then again. Then I set the phone down and stood up. I walked over to the table and blew out the candles one by one. Each one made a soft hiss as the flame died, leaving thin trails of smoke that curled upward and disappeared. Then I started cleaning. Not fast, not angry, just methodical. I wrapped the chicken in foil, transferred the potatoes into containers, put the green beans away. Everything had a place, so I moved it there, step by step. The dishwasher wasn't hooked up yet, so I washed everything by hand. Hot water, soap, rinse, dry. Repeated until the sink was empty and the counter was clear. I swept the floor even though it didn't need it. I took down the balloons last. Each one made a faint sound as the helium escaped. The letters collapsing in on themselves, the word home folding into nothing. The house felt different without them, quieter, more honest. I didn't cry. That's the part people expect when you tell a story like this, that there's a moment where everything breaks and you fall apart with it. That didn't happen. My hands went numb first, fingertips like they didn't belong to me. My chest felt hollow, not tight, not heavy, just empty, like something had been removed cleanly. No sharp edges, no drama, just absence. I stood there in the kitchen for a while after everything was done, looking at the space like I was seeing it for the first time, not as a place I needed to fill, just a place. Later, I'd learned there was a name for that feeling, but in that moment, it didn't need one. It was simple. They didn't come, and they weren't going to. I didn't understand what happened that night until 2 months later. By then, the house was fully set up, furniture in place, boxes gone, everything where it was supposed to be, on the outside. It looked like stability, like I'd settled into the life I'd been working toward. But something in me had gone quiet, not peaceful, just muted. I started seeing a therapist around that time, not because of one moment, but because of the accumulation of them. Her name was Dr. Renee Hollis, 12 years of experience, specialized in family systems and adult children of emotionally neglectful parents, on our 3rd session. I told her about the dinner, not dramatically, just facts, timeline, what I did, what they didn't do. She listened without interrupting, then asked a question that caught me off guard. What did you feel when you realized they weren't coming? I thought about it for a second. Nothing, I said. That's the problem. I expected to feel something. I didn't. She nodded like that made perfect sense. That's not a problem, she said. That's a response. She explained it in a way that stuck with me. Effective shutdown. When your emotional system has been overloaded enough times, it stops reacting in real time, not because you don't care, but because reacting hasn't changed anything in the past. So your body adapts. It protects you by flattening the response. Your mind catches up later, she said. But your body already made the call. That tracked. The night of the dinner. I hadn't been confused, or shocked, or even hurt in the way people expect. I just closed something. Dr. Hollis leaned forward slightly. Tell me about your brother. I almost laughed. It's always Kevin somehow. Family systems tend to organize around roles, she said. From what you've described, Kevin sounds like what we'd call the golden child, even though he's the one who's struggling, I asked. Especially because of that, she said. His dependency reinforces your parents' sense of purpose. They get to be needed, to step in, to support. That becomes part of their identity. And me. She didn't hesitate. You don't need them. It wasn't said as a compliment. It was just a fact. Your success disrupts the balance, she continued. If you can build a life without their help, it forces them to question the value of what they've provided to your brother. That's uncomfortable, so instead of celebrating you, they minimize or ignore the achievement. I sat with that for a while. Not because it was hard to believe, because it wasn't. That's why they didn't come, I said. She shook her head slightly. They didn't come because showing up would require them to acknowledge something they're not ready to face. I thought back to my dad's text, the tone, the timing. We need to talk about the house, not about the dinner, not about me, the house. Let me ask you something, she said. When you invited them, what were you hoping would happen? I didn't answer right away. I already knew. I thought this would be the thing they couldn't ignore, I said finally. She nodded, and when it wasn't, I leaned back in the chair. stared at the wall for a second. Then I stopped trying to make them see it. She didn't say anything to that. She didn't need to, because that was the moment everything shifted from reaction to decision, not emotional, structural. Like realizing you've been building around something unstable and deciding, finally, to remove it instead of reinforcing it again. The next morning, I didn't call anyone back, not my mom, not Kevin, not my dad. I made coffee in my kitchen, sat out on the porch swing, and looked at the oak tree while the sun came up. No music, no distractions, just quiet. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to fill it. Around 9, I got up, grabbed my keys, and drove to a hardware store 10 minutes away. I didn't overthink it. I just walked in, picked up a cedar board, a wood-burning kit, and a set of mounting hooks, back home. I set everything up on the porch, measured once, cut clean, sanded the edges until they felt right under my hands. No rush, no hesitation, just step by step, like everything else I'd built over the last 10 years. Then I plugged in the burner, waited for the tip to heat, and started writing. Slowly, carefully, pressing each letter into the wood like it mattered because it did. No family discounts, no visits, no exceptions. I went over each line twice to make sure it was clear. Not decorative, not emotional, just final by the time I finished. The board smelled faintly like smoke and cedar. I let it cool, then mounted it on the front gate, where anyone walking up to the house would see it before they even reached the door. I stepped back and looked at it for a second. No second thoughts. Then I pulled out my phone, took a photo, and posted it. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, caption, "My house, my rules." I put the phone down and went back inside. Didn't check it, didn't wait. But the internet doesn't wait for you. By the time I picked my phone up again, a few hours later, it was already moving faster than I expected. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Messages from people I didn't know. Shares climbing past numbers that didn't feel real. Strangers were reading it and understanding it immediately. More than that, they were recognizing it. People wrote about their own versions of that table. Different houses, different families. Same silence. Same moment where something just stopped. One comment stuck with me. A woman I'd never met wrote, "I spent years thinking if I just did one big thing right, they'd finally show up. Turns out, they were never planning to." I read that a few times, because it didn't feel like advice. It felt like confirmation. Meanwhile, my phone started ringing. My mom called first. I let it go. Then again and again, Kevin texted, "What the hell is that post? Take it down." 20 minutes later, Mom's crying. "Are you happy now?" I didn't answer. At 4:17 p.m., my dad called. I watched it ring. Let it stop. A voicemail came in right after. I didn't listen to it immediately, but I saved it anyway. Something told me I'd need it later. I never took the post down. Not because I wanted to prove a point, but because for the first time, I wasn't trying to manage how they felt about something I built, and that changed everything. By Monday morning, the post had moved past my control, not just shares momentum. People weren't just reacting. They were telling their own stories under mine. Promotions ignored, graduations skipped, houses, businesses, entire lives built in front of families who responded with silence or resentment. It wasn't noise, it was pattern recognition. At 7:02 a.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. "Mr. Cole." "Yeah, this is Janet Boyle with the Asheville Citizen-Times. I saw your post, it's trending locally. Would you be willing to talk about it?" Her tone wasn't sensational. It was measured, professional, like she was asking about something that mattered. I said yes. She came by the next day, sat with me on the porch swing, coffee in hand, recorder on the table between us, for 90 minutes. I walked her through everything, not just the dinner the decade behind it, the savings, the work, the dynamic with my family that made the night predictable in a way I hadn't wanted to admit. She asked for documentation. I gave her all of it. Bank statements going back years, pay stubs, certification records, closing documents, screenshots of the group chat, the invitation, the non-responses, my mom's text, my dad's voicemail, Kevin's messages, nothing edited, nothing framed, just facts. The article ran Thursday morning. Man buys dream home after a decade of work. Family doesn't show up. The internet does. By noon, it had spread beyond local. By evening, it was everywhere. That's when things shifted from uncomfortable to aggressive. Messages started coming in from people I actually knew, not close, but connected. Cousins, old family friends, people who had seen enough over the years to understand what was happening, but never said anything out loud. One email stood out. Rachel, my cousin on my dad's side. We'd been close as kids before the families drifted. I read her message at my kitchen table late that night, and by the time I finished, my hands weren't shaking. They were steady, which somehow felt worse. She told me things I hadn't known, that my parents had taken out a $15,000 loan 3 years earlier to help Kevin with a condo down payment one he defaulted on within 18 months, that they threw him the $2,000 birthday party at a restaurant when he turned 30. That when I graduated. They told extended family I'd finally finished, like I'd been behind. All of that landed, but one line stuck. Your mom told my mom she hoped you wouldn't actually buy the house because it would make Kevin feel worse about himself. I reread that sentence 3 times, not to understand it, to accept that it didn't need reinterpretation. I got up, went to the sink, ran cold water over my wrists, just like Dr. Hollis had shown me, grounding, because that wasn't a misunderstanding, that was intention. I forwarded the email to her and scheduled an emergency session the next morning. She didn't seem surprised. Your success disrupts the system, she said, not symbolically, practically. It forces comparisons your family has been avoiding for years. I nodded. It also explains the escalation, she added. She was right, because 6 weeks after the dinner, I got a call at work that confirmed it. Thomas Dunlap, the real estate attorney who handled my closing. Ethan, I need to ask you something, and I don't want you to panic. My stomach dropped anyway. Has anyone in your family made inquiries about your property deed? I went quiet. What kind of inquiries? I received a call this morning from an attorney in Raleigh, Craig Bellar. He's representing your parents. He asked whether there were any irregularities in your closing. Specifically, if any family funds were used in your down payment that might establish an equitable claim. For a second, everything around me felt disconnected. Office noise, fluorescent lights, someone laughing 2 cubicles over. All of it felt wrong. They didn't give me anything, I said. Not for the house, not ever. I know, Thomas said. Your file is clean. I told him that. But Ethan, they're fishing. And you don't hire a lawyer to fish unless you're serious. I hung up and sat there for 14 minutes without moving. Then I opened my laptop and started pulling everything together. Every statement, every transfer, every deposit, chronologically organized, clean, traceable. By 5:15, I was in Thomas's office. We went through everything line by line, zero ambiguity, he said finally. This house is entirely yours. If they file anything, they'll lose and they'll risk sanctions. Then why do it, I asked, even though I already knew. He looked at me over his glasses. Because they can't stand that it is. I hired him on the spot. The next morning, he sent a cease and desist letter to their attorney. Formal, documented, clear any claim would be met with counteraction. But I didn't stop there. I called Janet, told her everything. She paused for a long time, then asked one question. Are you willing to go on record? Yes. All of it. All of it. The second article ran 2 weeks later. Detailed. Verified. Documented. Family attempts legal claim on property son purchased alone. That one didn't just spread. It detonated. Within days, their attorney dropped them, citing reputational concerns. My mom's online business handmade candles collapsed under backlash. Reviews flooded in. Orders canceled. She shut it down within the week. I didn't celebrate it, but I didn't feel bad either. Kevin called me that night. First time he'd called since the dinner. He was drunk. "You ruined everything, man," he said. "Mom won't stop crying. Dad's not talking to anyone. You blew up this family over a post." "No," I said calmly. "I exposed a family that hoped I'd fail." Silence. Then softer, less certain. "That's not true," but even he didn't sound convinced. I ended the call, turned off my phone. And for the first time since this started, I slept through the night. The next morning, I blocked all three of them. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Because by that point, it wasn't about one dinner anymore. It was about everything that came after, and everything they chose to do instead of just showing up. 3 weeks after I blocked their numbers, a letter showed up in my mailbox, handwritten, my father's. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the kitchen counter and left it there for a full day, like it needed to prove it belonged before I gave it my attention. When I finally picked it up, I called Thomas first. "Just to be safe," I said. He read it before I did. "It's not legal," he told me. "It's personal. You can read it." So I did. 2 pages, careful handwriting, the same controlled tone he always used, but different in places, softer. He said he was sorry, that he hadn't understood how his silence felt, that he didn't agree with everything my mom had done, that he should have stepped in sooner, that he was proud of me, that he always had been. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. When I told Dr. Hollis about it, she asked the only question that mattered. "Do you believe him?" I thought about it. "I believe he feels bad," I said. "But feeling bad and changing are 2 different things," she nodded. "What do you want to do?" I didn't hesitate. Nothing, for now. And that turned out to be the right answer. Because doing nothing wasn't avoidance anymore. It was space. The months that followed were the quietest my life had ever been, and the fullest. I stopped reaching, stopped checking, stopped setting up situations where they could show up and disappoint me again. And in that space, something unexpected happened. Other people started showing up. My neighbor Dale, 72, retired electrician, knocked on my door one Saturday morning with a pecan pie. "Saw you in the paper," he said. My daughter went through something similar. Figured I'd introduce myself. We sat on the porch for an hour. Then there was Priya from work. She came over for coffee one weekend, then brought her husband the next time, then their kids, then they brought friends. It wasn't planned. It just grew. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch with my laptop, working through some code, when a kid from down the street stopped at the gate and asked what I was doing. I told him. He asked if I could show him, so I did. Next week, he came back with a friend, then another. Within a month, I had 4 kids sitting on my porch twice a week, learning basic Python on borrowed laptops. Nothing formal, just loops, variables, small projects. One of them Marcus. 12 built a working calculator in 3 weeks. He showed his mom. She cried. She brought me food. I didn't expect that part, but it stayed with me. Because it wasn't about the code. It was about someone showing up and saying, "This matters." That's the part no one tells you. When you stop chasing people who won't choose you, you create space for people who already would. You just couldn't see them before. 7 months after the dinner no one came to, I hosted another one. Same house, same table, same candles, different people. Sunflowers this time. Dale said they lasted longer. And he was right. The food was better too. I'd adjusted the recipe. Fixed what didn't work the first time. There were 8 of us. Dale, Priya, and her husband. Marcus and his mom. 2 women from my running group. A guy from the neighborhood who'd fixed my mailbox without being asked. We ate. We talked. We stayed at the table longer than planned because no one was looking at the time. No one had somewhere else they needed to be. At one point, I stepped into the kitchen to grab something and just paused. Stood there with a dish towel in my hand, looking at the table from a distance, listening. Laughter, conversations overlapping, someone telling a story that didn't need to impress anyone. It wasn't loud. It was full, and for a second, I thought about that first night, the cold food, the empty chairs, the silence that felt like a verdict. I understood something then that I couldn't have understood before. The house was never the point. It wasn't a test my family failed. It wasn't proof of anything. It was just a house. 4 walls, a roof, a tree out front that had been there longer than any of us. What made it matter was who stood inside it, and more importantly, who chose to. Because in the end, family isn't who you invite, it's who shows up. If this story hit you in any way, consider subscribing. There are more like this, real, grounded, and worth your time. This story was created by the Fish Tells Stories team for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be replicated or acted upon in real life under any circumstances.